Hello everyone, I'm Pastor Patrick and welcome back to Big Questions. Today's question is a difficult one and one that is volatile in our society right now. What about abortion? Now, before we begin to talk about this question, I want to say that the gospel is clear. No matter what you have done, no matter how bad you think you messed up, there is forgiveness. And Jesus says that there is no shame or condemnation. In other words, Jesus loves deeply those women who have gotten an abortion and desires for them to know his forgiveness and love. This video is not about shaming anyone or hating on anyone. It's about looking at this important and divisive topic of abortion in the best way that we know how. First, what is Roe versus Wade? Roe versus Wade was a Supreme Court decision made in 1973 that stopped states from outlawing abortion. Basically, no state could restrict abortion completely. Recently, this decision was revoked as unconstitutional, meaning that the Constitution did not guarantee abortion as a right. And now the decision belongs with each state. So currently in our state of California, abortion is legal up until a baby can survive outside the womb, which is about 24 weeks or 6 months. However, because Roe v. Wade was overturned, Texas and other similar states can ban abortion entirely. So what are the arguments on both sides of the abortion debate? So on the pro-abortion side, or pro-choice, they argue that a woman have the right to control their own bodies. This is a logical argument that makes sense and is an emotionally strong argument. Of course, we say women have control of their bodies and have the right to make their own healthcare decisions. But on the other side, the anti-abortion or pro-life side, they argue that killing innocent children is always evil. They say that the baby in the womb is a new life that is separate from their mother and deserves the right to be protected and cared for. This is also a logical argument that has a strong emotional appeal. We would all hopefully agree that killing innocent children is always wrong. So the argument comes down to whether or not the baby is a separate human being. Now, we believe that life begins at conception, when the sperm meets the egg. A new life is brought into existence with unique DNA that is different than the father's and the mother's. This aspect of unique DNA makes all the difference. See, suppose that tomorrow on the planet Mars, the Mars rover came across a cave. And in that cave, they found pods which contained unique DNA. Every headline in America would read, "Life found on Mars." Why? Because scientifically, we know that unique DNA represents a unique life. So we believe that at conception, a new life is formed that deserves protection and care. But let's quote unquote steel man the other side's argument. By steel man, we mean to take the strongest pro-abortion argument and respond to it, rather than taking their weakest argument and responding to it. Now, I linked a video below featuring Stephanie Gray, who I have learned so much about these arguments. So please check out that video if you're interested. So those who are pro-abortion say this, and this is their strongest argument. Okay, so maybe we can agree that it is unique DNA at conception, and it is a human life. However, legally, we cannot force a woman to give her body for her child. For instance, if a child was extremely ill and needed a bone marrow transplant, legally, we could not force the child's mother to give her bone marrow. So is the case with abortion. You cannot force a woman to give birth to her child. As I said, this is an extremely strong argument. So how would we respond? So first, we want to make the distinction that although a pregnancy may be unplanned, in most abortion cases, the pregnancy came about through consensual sex. Now, every culture since recorded history has known that pregnancy is the result of sex. And so in most cases, this human baby is a direct result of its mother's choice. Now, we'll talk later about circumstances where this is not the case, but you see how this makes a difference. If you choose to have sex knowing that pregnancy is a possibility, then you are responsible for your child. But even a stronger response to this argument would be to ask the question, what is the obligation of a parent? So the parent is not obligated legally, although perhaps morally, to give bone marrow or a kidney or blood transfusion to their child. These are seen as extraordinary needs. However, a parent is required to provide for the basic needs of their child. Basic needs such as food, clothing, and shelter. If a parent were to let their child starve to death, they would be held legally accountable and put in prison for that. And also, we must ask, what is the purpose of the uterus? The uterus exists only for the purpose of giving life. In fact, the uterus is designed or evolved, if you believe in evolution, to meet the basic needs of the baby. This is not the case with your bone marrow or your kidney or your blood. So both inside and outside the womb, parents are legally required to provide for the basic needs of their children, which includes shelter and food. This is why a parent is not obligated to give a kidney an extraordinary need, but is required to give food a basic need. There's one more argument for abortion that we alluded to above, and that is the question of rape. Rape is such an horrendous evil, and our hearts break for those women who have experienced this violence against themselves. Again, I want to reiterate that this is not about shaming victims, and we as a church should love and support and show compassion to these women who have been victimized, just as Jesus showed them compassion and love. But the pro-abortion groups will argue that in these horrific cases, that it would be equally evil to force the woman to carry her rapist child and give birth to her. So what is our response? Well, again, I want to agree that any violent attack on a vulnerable person is abhorrent and evil. The difference is that I see abortion as falling under that same definition. What is abortion if not a violent attack on a vulnerable, defenseless person? And so I believe that the rapist should be punished severely, but I do not believe that the innocent child in the womb should be punished. In fact, many anti-abortion groups put it this way. They say that they're in favor of the death penalty for the guilty rapists, but not for the innocent child, whereas many people who are pro-abortion are in fact against the death penalty for violent criminals. So we do not believe that the woman is legally required to raise the child, but during a relatively short window of time where she is the only person who can meet those basic needs of her child, she would be legally required to meet those basic needs. I want to say again how much empathy I feel for those women who feel alone and scared and without hope. It is the calling of the church to follow Jesus' example and defend those vulnerable women and care for those children without homes. This is why there are Christian crisis pregnancy centers around the U.S. dedicated to giving care and support to women both before and after birth. This is why some Christian churches have dedicated themselves to giving a home to every single child in their foster care system in their city. But the work is not done, and so many more needs need to be met to care for single mothers and those children without homes. In LA right now, there are approximately 22,000 children in foster care, but there are 2,000 Christian churches. If each church fostered approximately 11 children, there would be no need for foster care. So it's not just about arguments or laws, it's about helping the weak and vulnerable women and babies both before and after birth. So please let me know if you have any more questions on this topic or any pushback on the arguments that I made. And check out the rest of these question videos in our Big Question playlist. Thanks for watching.